Okay. Welcome everyone to our virtual information sessions here at Maine Woodland Owners. My name is Jen Hicks. I am the Director of Communications and Outreach, and I'm here in Augusta, and I'm thrilled to have such a nice large group of people here for our lunch hour presentation conversation with Patty Cormier, Director of Maine Forest, the Maine Forest Service. Patty was appointed in this position in 2019, and I know she's been kept very busy. This is, if you've not been to one of our events before, I'll give you a few tips on how we like to operate here so everybody is able to participate in this presentation. Patty is going to be presenting with some slides for the first half or so of this hour. And during her presentation, she's happy to receive questions, and the best way to do it probably is through chat. So I see a lot of people have already used it, so I know that that will work. And if you are also interested in asking the question verbally, if you could please let us know in that chat, and I'll unmute you and you'll have a chance to ask. So I think the best way we'll do this is we'll have Patty do her presentation first, and then we'll open the floor for some questions and discussion. If you have any questions for me, go ahead and send a chat as well. Because we have so many folks today, I won't be able to see people raise their hands. So the only way I'll know that you need something from me or you want to ask a question is the chat feature. So hopefully everybody's comfortable with that. Maine Woodland Owners is doing these online presentations as a way to adapt to our times here with our COVID safety issues. And so we're so glad everybody's able to jump on and be part of these presentations. We are an education organization for small woodland owners in Maine. And this is our 45th year. And we're very, very, very happy to be here and to continue to provide the support that woodland owners need. To find out more information about us, please visit our website, mainewoodlandowners.org. And we will have, this is the last of our October presentations, but we have a whole slate of November events. So check our events page at mainewoodlandowners/events, mainewoodlandowners.org/events. So we hope that this won't be the last presentation you will be part of with us. So I'm going to pass this over now to our Executive Director, Tom Doak. He has been here for over 16 years as the Executive Director, but before that, he served as the Director of the Maine Forest Service from 1999 to 2004. And he is a licensed forester and has been providing terrific support and advice, and is a great resource for many in the state of Maine. And I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce Patty.
Great. I'm very pleased to have Patty do this. I won't take but a second, but I've known Patty a very long time, very, very capable person. She's a former board member of this organization and chapter leader, so she's very familiar with what we do and frankly, small woodland owner issues. So very pleased, Patty, that you're agreeing to do this, and we think it will be fun. And I bet you're going to have a lot of questions. So I think the way we're going to run it is Patty's got some slides that she's going to show, some things she wants to talk about, and then there'll be time at the end for a question and answer. We'll try to finish on time, but Patty, I don't know if you have a little extra time at the end if we have extra questions or something maybe, but thank you again, Patty, for doing this. I understand it's kind of a challenging time, and I appreciate your doing this and everything you've done for woodland owners in the state. So it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Tom and Jen. I was very happy to get asked to do this. I think in the Forest Service, we're all doing a lot of these Zoom talks and presentations, and the small landowner group and affiliates, you're my crew. So happy to do this. So what I wanted to do was, as Tom said, I'm going to go through 7 slides, and basically it's just making sure everybody's on the same page about what the Forest Service does, what each division does. I'll go through them fairly quickly. But yeah, as Tom said, I was appointed in May of 2019. And after 21 years as a district forester for the Forest Service. So all those 21 years was involved with landowners, formerly SWOM and Maine wood landowners, tree farm, all those groups. So you have an advocate here, that's for sure. So prior to that, I was, prior to the state service, I was 10 years with Georgia Pacific Corporation. And prior to that, a short stint with U.S. Forest Service doing the inventory in Pennsylvania. So I guess I'll get started. You can go ahead to the next slide. So Jen's running the slides for me. So just wanted you to see, where does the Forest Service fit since the consolidation of departments? So we're under the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry. Our commissioner is Amanda Beal, and the 4 bureaus under ACF is Bureau of Agriculture, Food and Rural Resources, Bureau of Information and Land Use Planning, Bureau of Parks and Lands, and then of course, Bureau of Forestry. And then next slide. So just so we're all on the same page, I'm sure you've all seen this. So our overall mission, I'm not going to read it out, but you can read it. So in a broad sense, developing, advocating, promoting activities that encourage sound long-term management of forest resources, protecting forest resources from the effects of fire, insects, disease, and misuse, and providing accurate, relevant, and timely information about Maine's forest resources. Okay. So who we are in the Bureau of Forestry. So we have 3 divisions: Forest Health and Monitoring, Forest Protection, and Forest Policy and Management. Just going to spend a couple minutes on each division. So Forest Health and Monitoring, and please be, the numbers of employees fluctuates a little bit. So, and they include seasonal employees. So 25 employees. This includes entomologists, a pathologist, and the inventory crews. And they are, so there's 3,500 continuous forest inventory plots measured on a 5-year rotation. And they are, amazingly, this year, 1 week ahead. And last week they had something like 80 plots left to do of the 600 for the year. So as you can imagine, in such a crazy year with this pandemic, that they're actually ahead of the game by a week, but it's still ahead of the game. So that's great. So these inventory plots, the information is used for our timber supply outlook, our 5-year inventory report, and all kinds of, the climate information, climate change, how our forests contribute. So this information is very valuable. It's been going on a long time. It used to be administered by the U.S. Forest Service because they are U.S. Forest Service plots, but now we do them, and that's been going on for quite a while. We figured we could do them way better. So, and then of course for Forest Health and Monitoring, it's about protecting forests from insects and disease. And along with changing conditions in our forests with temperatures and everything, this is a big deal, the insect issues we're facing. I'm sure you've seen the recent PR on Facebook and social media about different issues we have going on. So these guys, it's a small crew for such a big charge, but they do very well. And of course, we have spruce budworm. We're monitoring all the suite of all the insects out there, invasive or native. And I encourage you, of course, to go on our website and get any information you can about these these insects. And of course, you know, part of their charge is reporting to the U.S. Forest Service and the fact sheets that are online. One thing I just found out, so brown-tail moth, they do aerial flights around this time every year to see what the stocking is, I guess, of insects. And this year, 157,000 acres was mapped of brown-tail moth infestation, and that's up 126 from 126,000 acres. So clearly a rise in deforestation, and it's such a public health issue. So then there's forest protection, and again, the 89 is subject to change. They have 8 vacancies right now. So it's forest rangers, we have aircraft, of course, the pilots and the mechanics for the aircraft, and a fire prevention specialist. And their job is that you see them out, there's more of them in the field. There's by statute 48 rangers, and again we're down 8 positions. But their job is, of course, wildfire prevention and suppression, enforcement of harvesting laws, and responding to disasters and emergencies. And I'm sure you've seen that this year is the highest year in 20 years of number of fires, which was 1,100. And I was looking at an old Austin Wilkins report from 100 years ago this year, and they had 60,000 acres had burned that year, and the value of that 60,000 acres was just under $500,000. And compare that to now with 1,100 acres, and the value is just under $500,000 acres. So it's a lot different now. You're looking at much higher values with per acreage. And so we, along with wildfire prevention and suppression, we send out crews out west. We have 2 engines out there right now, 2 Type 6 engines, one in Colorado and one in California. This crews keep rotating out, and I believe it's 60 folks have gone out on these engines, and we're helping out another state or other states, and we're getting folks are getting great training. So this, of the 60, it's been 30 rangers, and the rest are civilians that have gone out. So it's really good for our state to have that experience when those folks come back. And we all have heard how crazy bad it is out there. And then forest policy and management, 25 employees, that's district foresters, biometrician, urban and community forester, water quality specialists, computer specialists, and regional enforcement coordinators. And of course, this is the division that I was in for 21 years. This is the district foresters you see out meeting with landowners, working with stakeholder groups where they can, and also dip their toes in the enforcement arena as well. And then we have the policy folks and planners overseeing forest stewardship, urban and community forestry grants and activities. And also a big role is educating legislators and providing information for legislators and legislation, which is a busy job in itself. Next one, Jen. So just wanted to put down some facts, just in case you're on, you're in a trivia game or something. This will be helpful for you. So 17.5 million forested acres, most in the country. Trees over 1 inch in diameter, DBH, 24 billion. So there's a trivia question for you. Volume of trees in Maine, 205 million cords. Net annual growth, 5.9 million cords. and average annual volume removed is 4.1 million cords. So we're exceeding, and we have been for years, growth exceeds removals. So then total forest ecosystem carbon stocks are estimated 1.5 billion tons. And this is this year's numbers. This represents an increase of less than 1% over 2013, but at least it's not going back. And invasive plants, of course, many of you are dealing with that. On these plots, it was found that there's a 2.2% increase on the plots since 2013. And of course, that's a troubling trend. And a 2018 survey of wood processing mill indicates that harvests decreased 15% since 2015. Sawlog harvest levels increased 11%. So just a little bit of trivia for you. Our 5-year report is being worked on, and Jeremy Frank, our biometrician who replaced Ken Lawson, he's reporting on a timber supply outlook report, which hasn't been updated since the 90s, I believe. So I think it's good timing, and he'll be doing the modeling and projecting in that report. And that should be out maybe late this year, early next year. And next one, Jen. So this was, right when I started, I did a presentation up in, when we could have them in person. And they had asked, okay, what are your priorities? So I look at these now, and of course this is, again, pre-pandemic, and they're still my priorities. So filling vacancies, and we had a uptick in water quality complaints, so that was troubling, and that was meeting with different stakeholder groups, and Tom Gilbert, our water quality specialist, really ramping up the BMP training for folks. So we'll know with the next round of BMP inspections how that, if it moved the needle, I guess. Another priority, of course, is the 2020 forest inventory, which is well on its way. The forest action plan, which is a federally required plan. It allows us to be part of grants to get grants, and for others to get grants for many different reasons. Climate change modeling, of course, with the governors and the administration's priority of climate change, we are very much part of the picture. Tom is on the Climate Council, and of course, there's a lot of information on that on the web right now too. Our forest operations notification database, so that online, so getting a forest operations notification online should be going live by January 1st. So please keep in mind that there will be a few bumps like with anything. So we hope there isn't going to be, but it's a big change, but you'll be able to get your harvest notification online, and hopefully even before January that will go online. And then of course the priority of the 5-year inventory report, timber supply outlook report, always invasive insect monitoring and control. Budget, we've been hearing a lot about the budget. It's going to be tricky. We are a small part of the whole state budget, but we also become part of the curtailments when they happen. Tom, as a former director, he certainly knows that well. And then what new technology can make us more efficient? And we were, like everybody else, we were thrown into this virtual world, and everybody's been doing very good. Our field folks never stopped going out in the field. It just looked a little different. But it certainly pushed us to really look into more technology and, always looking for ideas on any of this. BMP monitoring and education still remains a high priority. Keeping the delegation informed of issues. So we have a very good working relationship with the Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry Legislative Committee. So that's important. And a couple of the challenges that that we have right now, of course, is a backlog of landowner reports, and hopefully with the online system that will ease up a bit. And then statewide standards, for those of you familiar with the zoning, shoreline zoning that towns have. If 13 more towns that have been identified sign up for statewide standards, then all of the unorganized townships will fall under the statewide standards regulations. And this is just an attempt. It started a while ago, but it's an attempt to have a consistent suite of shoreline zoning issue, not issues, but regulations over the state. And we are a home rule state, so not every town has chosen statewide standards. Okay, and next. So these are things I think about a lot. At night when I can't sleep, or mostly it's because I can't sleep because of these, but so the present future condition of Maine's forest, are there ways, is there something we can do differently to foster the health of our forests that we're not doing? I just think about that a lot. You know, you get up in the air in Maine and there's a lot of trees. You saw 24 billion was one of my facts. So we've got a lot of trees, but we've got to protect that as well. And for the landowners on this call, you are a key piece of that. And you're, very, very integral to that question. And who are our working partners, so which goes along with how can we best support the work of such groups, Tree Farm, Maine Woodland Owners, the Forest Opportunity Roadmap efforts, CLP, SFI, Keeping Maine Forests, the Forest Products Council, professional logging contractors, etc. How can we help these stakeholders? And it's the challenge of the balance of it. And what can we do with climate change? The forest on this climate council is being heavily looked at as an answer. Well, we got to make sure that it's not the only answer to what's happening with the temperature change. Workforce development. I have always said that people in the Maine Forest Service are just amazing people. And with this pandemic as well, it's just people have stepped up to the plate. And how can I support folks in the Forest Service to make sure they have what they need to assist you as a taxpayer, all the stakeholders, landowners, etc. And then there's always the federal funding. How do we successfully compete for federally funding? It's federal funding. It's very competitive, as you can imagine. You look at all the fires burning out west. That's going to be a draw for a lot of funding. And how do we make sure that we're at the table for that funding? And then, how can we assist the forest practitioner, the landowner, logger, forester? I'm just always looking for ideas, open to any ideas. So what are your ideas for the Forest Service? We need to be creative these days and still, be creative and get a lot of work done. So that's the 7 slides I had. So basically it's if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I might not know all the answers, but go ahead and ask.
Patty, this is Richard Nass talking. I have a question. I hope it isn't considered to be kind of much of a wise guy question, but we recently got an email from your department basically talking about green ash trees that apparently came in from Pennsylvania and were being sold by Lowe's. And the request from the department was, if you know of one of these trees, let us know. So here's my question. This is an enforcement question. What are you going to do if I knew where one was? You going to come and dig it up? Now that your rangers are carrying guns, what is your view of the enforcement side of what's happening?
So I see that Gary Fish just came on camera, and I'm going to let him take that question. But good question, Richard.
Yeah, that is a good question, Richard. And basically, we are leaving the option up to the person that purchased that tree and planted it as to whether they keep it or not. What we are asking is to try to find them all so that we can do an initial inspection now to see if they have any signs of emerald ash borer infestation. And if they don't, then we will, basically give that person the option of either having that tree destroyed and replaced by Lowe's, because Lowe's has pledged to replace those trees if the purchasers want to do that. If they decide to keep the tree, then we will ask them to allow us to come out and inspect the tree again next year and probably the year after, because sometimes it can take a while for the emerald ash borer to run its cycle through a tree, sometimes as much as 2 years. So we would be looking for any kind of exit holes in the bark of that tree to see if there's any signs of emerald ash borer coming out of it. And we want to know especially about those trees that are outside of the current quarantine area, which is York and Cumberland counties and the 4 southwestern towns of Oxford County, and from Fort Kent to Hamlin and over to Eagle Lake in Aroostook County, just so that we can keep track of where it is and we can let foresters and others know where the edge of the infestation is, so that you know whether or not to take action with either thinking about harvesting ash or protecting individual trees with insecticide treatment.
Richard, that wasn't supposed to happen. That was not, we had gotten a tip from New Hampshire folks that those trees had gone to Lowe's, and we appreciate that they did that. And Lowe's has worked with us to take care of that, but that was not, not a legal action that occurred.
No, it wasn't. And unfortunately that happened, although those trees were, they originated from Maryland, and obviously Maryland has been infested for many years. The trees were inspected by the nursery inspectors there in the fall before they came up to Connecticut and then to Maine. So that provides at least a little bit extra reduction in risk, but not total reduction in risk. And unfortunately, the nursery that basically provided the trees, because Lowe's sells all their plants by consignment, the nursery basically had only looked at our invasive plant list for the plants that they didn't think that they could send to Maine, and didn't realize that they really needed to look at all the quarantines as well. And of course, they know that now. And they did get a letter of information from the USDA APHIS, basically saying that you screwed up and please don't do this anymore, and pay better attention to it.
Thanks, Patty and Gary. Patty, how about, again, not me trying to be a wise guy, but how about the guns? The Rangers wearing guns. How's that working out?
So you're not being a wise guy, Richard. I appreciate your questions. So actually the day I started this position, the Rangers went live, if you will, with their guns. and it was a very soft approach to it. So there have not been any issues. The only time one was used was to kill a moose that was a safety hazard. It was sick, and it kept going after cars in the road, and the warden service was called, and they weren't in a position to go help. So they asked if the ranger would didn't help the moose out, but to get rid of that safety issue. But thanks for asking. Have you seen any different, Richard?
No, Patty. In fact, I was at a tree, with the ash borer thing down here at the district, at the U.S. Forest Service building, and the 2 rangers that participate were wearing guns, and this was about a year ago this time. So it's just disconcerting to me. That's all. But no, I have nothing. I've got nothing else to report. I'm just wish it hadn't happened. That's all.
Patty, we do have a hand raised from Bill Leary. So Bill, if you wanted to unmute and ask your question.
Yes, thank you for doing this, Patty. Very much appreciated.
Hey, good to see you, Bill.
It's good to see you. And I have 2 questions. One has to do with the actual role of the forest rangers. And I saw they were listed under protective services there. I've come to see the forest ranger not only as a friend, but the Forest Service on the ground with me. And you'd listed on your outline emergency services, but I look at them as a kind of ally. That's my first question about their role. The second has to do with how you see all of the different groups serving Maine's forests working together, how they best can work together, and what role you can play, what role they can play, all working together to advance the health of Maine's forests.
Thanks, Bill. That's a very, very good question. So I encourage, any job, whether it's the foresters, rangers, anybody, this job is the jobs are constantly growing with the times, if you will. So one of the biggest things I focused on when I first started was, because having been out in the field, was, and I'm always trying to improve that. How do we get everybody working together? Because we all have the same goal. It's no silos. We don't want silos. And it's going to be a more effective and efficient state workforce for you, Bill, for any landowner, if folks are working together. So, this wasn't a big thing, but I did have this pandemic makes it a little bit of a challenge too. We had our first ever all Forest Service training in Ellsworth last fall, and it was great because I gotta say, when you're standing around a campfire, that's when kind of walls break down, and you say, oh, I didn't know who you were, and that's when those folks are gonna start calling each other. But it is all the jobs within the Forest Service. They're ever changing and trying to respond to what the issues are. And like I said, we've got great people, and this pandemic has really thrown a wrench in everything. But the field folks, especially, never skipped a beat. They kept on doing what they were doing before. Of course, there were different guidelines with that. I don't know if I answered your question, but it's always a work in progress, and it's definitely a priority of having folks within the Forest Service, the 3 divisions, working together, as well as you saw, Gary Fish, the horticulturalist. We work with the Bureau of Ag on issues, And especially with this administration, it's been much more open to working with all kinds of groups. And my question of what can the Forest Service do for you kind of thing is, again, do you have ideas? And I need to hear them. But thank you for asking that. And I don't know if I answered your question, Bill.
Yes, that's very helpful, Patty, but I also just wanted to underline the role of the rangers as the Forest Service's feet on the ground and as go-to allies for woodland owners.
Absolutely. I would hope that the rangers, foresters, everybody, that they're looked at as people they can go to and that are there to help them, and not being in the field myself, I would see that people would not want to call us because there would be a perception that we're government, but that is not the case with the rangers or the field folks. You're exactly right, they are allies, and I'm glad you say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty, Gary also sent a chat just saying we have already located 4 of the remaining 36 trees. The press release and social media outreach is working well so far. I guess it's regarding the Home Depot ash tree.
Lowe's, yeah.
I'm sorry, Lowe's. Thanks. Patty, I have a quick question, and then someone can jump in after that. What's it like after you've been in the field for so long, and you went from hands-on? You were our star chapter leader, and
Really?
yeah, absolutely. You left big shoes to fill for our organization, and you wrote for our newsletter, and you were just in the field and just hands-on, and now you're in this position where you're more administrative. So how has that worked, and what did you bring to the department from the field?
Good question. So it's going well. It has been a transition, but what's great is I didn't have to learn what people do for jobs. So I know what everyone does out in the field, and that's been a huge asset when advocating for the folks in the field to help the folks in the public. So it's a very it's a busy position. It's I also work with the National Association of State Foresters, so a lot of committees and meetings to do with that. But Jen, it was a big transition. But having the field part of it and knowing those in the field has been a huge help, as opposed to someone that comes in and doesn't know who's out there, what they do. And glad to hear I was the star chapter leader.
You were. We're still feeling that big hole you left, but Joe's doing a great job. So it's nothing. It's just that he'll be the first to say he's using your influence and your leadership, that model of resources available for people at any point. We know as an organization that's this time, especially during this time of the pandemic, we really have felt like we could fit a role well for people. A lot more people spent time in their woodlots this year. A lot more people were paying attention to what they do have, and seemed even more grateful for the opportunity to be up here in Maine and to be part of the forest landscape. So I think we found a bit more of a niche for ourselves as a place for refuge, not just keeping up a forest, but to find some peace and it's very easy to keep socially distanced in the forest. So
yeah, definitely. Foresters, loggers, they are the original social distancing practitioner, right?
Right. We have a reporter from TV5, Allegra, just sent me a chat. Allegra, would you like to just ask your question to Patty directly?
Sure thing. Sorry. You guys can hear me all right, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
I was just wondering if you could just speak to why these webinars and information is so important to the public, and what your main goals are in terms of just educating and making sure people can take those baby steps to do their part, if you will.
Sure, thanks for the question. So, given the times we have right now, these webinars are integral in keeping in touch with folks. It's important as a state agency for us to be constantly getting out what's going on. It's part of being transparent. It's part of giving good information that so folks, if they have ideas and questions, they can get with us. Our foresters, for instance, they've done a good job with having a forester, coffee with a forester, and I think lunch with a forester. So, it's examples of that, such as that. And our entomologists, they, with all this invasive insect information, invasive plants, it's great to have this. It pushed us to have all these webinars like everybody's doing, and you at any time can go look at that. And that was part of my priority for technology, that's the future, that once, and hopefully this all pandemic goes away, we're back to the way it was, but we still have these technology tools that anyone, if they can't get out or for whatever reason, they can still learn from inside their own home. And that's a huge path forward, I think.
That's great. And one more follow-up question with that, just what would you say are some of the, I know you outlined them in some of your slides, but just some of the main priorities or key takeaways that you're hoping you can really drive home if you had to pick, maybe 3 that you really felt at least the people of Maine should be aware of and cognizant of when it comes to their forests and the land around us? What would your sort of message be to them?
Well, I guess with one of my priorities I listed was climate change, climate adjustment. And the woodland owner, as I said, is a key part of that. The forests are so multi-dimensional, and it's for woodland owners to understand that their woodlot plays a key role in that, and we want to be partners with them to help them keep their woodlots, keep managing their woodlots, because we are being the forests of Maine are under pressure, and the message is, like I said, it's very multi-dimensional. The needs of, or what the forest can provide. Everybody draws something different from the forest, and we can provide all that, but we have to be very balanced, and the landowner is a key person in that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom Doak's hand is raised. Go ahead.
Hey, Patty, I have 2 things. One, kind of, so I understand it's not your issue, but directly, but the idea that we had nursery stock coming in the state with one of the biggest pests, one of the biggest threats to this forest of Maine, to me is inexcusable. And I would ask that you be pretty aggressive in helping to deal with that issue so it doesn't happen again. I was director when we had hemlock woolly adelgid, and we first time on nursery stock, and we simply just took them out. I don't understand leaving them in place and then monitoring them as potential threats, but that's a department choice. But I think it's more prudent to remove them. When we did it, we had people voluntarily give them up, and they were replaced by people, and it worked. I fine, but that's just a comment. But I know it's not directly the Forest Service, but I think the director of the Forest Service has a key role in kind of protecting the forest and urging those things not happen again. You mentioned, staying up late at night thinking about things, and the thing that gets me probably the most is the foreign pest. But the second thing is we haven't made any headway on helping landowners, the small landowners of the state, get more forestry assistance. You know, we've been at what 25% of harvesting is done probably with some kind of professional involvement. And, you know, we've been advocating for that, to do that. But have you thought more about the ideas of how we can get those numbers up? I know some of it's resource related, but.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that keeps me up at night too. Thanks for reminding me about that. So, you know, I don't know if everyone saw in the paper last week, but there's a 23% increase in real estate transactions, so, due to they're attributing this to the COVID. So since last year, 23% increase. So to me, these are folks potentially coming from out of state. They've never owned land. That is a great opportunity. There's an opportunity knocking at our door to get with these folks. The logistics of that is not as easy. We have a very slim workforce, but there's a way to get with these folks, and then that all plays into the whole, you know, getting them assistance with management and having it done properly and having it be a managed forest, which is good for all of us. So that's one thing that that I've been thinking about. And the other, you know, why have we not moved the needle? Why is it that 25% of landowners are, or only 25% are involving foresters? I don't have the golden answer for that. We're always thinking about that. And the Forest Service, it is all about reaching out to landowners. I'm hoping that, you know, more of these, with more of the online and the webinars, that allows people to easily to get on. Even with our forest operations notification database, or that going online, that's an opportunity to be reaching people as they get a notification. But great question, and it's something that we've always been trying to figure out. How can we get folks, because they, you know, folks are gonna ask for help when they're there, when they're ready to do that. So how do we be there when they're ready to do that?
I would just add, Patty, you know, our organization is committed to helping you find different ways to do it. I think
I know you are.
one of the challenges, I think we keep doing the same thing, and we're at 25% now. We need to figure out a different way.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not quite sure what that is yet, but I think we need to explore some new ways to do this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. If it's been going on so long and it's been 25%, then that is, something's not working, right?
Great, good.
Patty, we've got a nice flurry of questions in our chat. So I'm going to read one from someone who doesn't have a microphone. So, and it's building off of what Tom was talking about, the fact that we've got a lot of new people involved in our forests. But his take was that because of COVID, we have a new breed of forest recreationists and campers. They lack the traditional ethics while on both private and public property. And we also have an influx of urbanites buying woodlands to escape COVID-rich areas. I'm seeing hunting camps purchased for intended residential use. And homesteading with tiny homes, yurt campers, etc., increasing. Foragers are foraging without asking. With all this said, can Maine Forest Service get the word out to these folks to, you know, on how, you know, what they should be doing when it comes to being on other people's land, on littering, degrading roads. And again, knowing you have a slim staff, it's, you know, certainly stretching them thin. Is your staff keeping an eye out for squatters in Maine woodlands, and who may be taking up residence on woodlots that might not be inspected for a decade? So I guess just new problems because of a new world.
Yeah. Well, one of the comments goes back to what Bill Weary said, that you know, the folks in the field are the allies to the landowner. So as far as squatting on woodlands, the rangers and foresters are monitoring woodlots where they can and do take note of that. And, you know, the point of so many more folks recreating in the woods, we encouraged it, right? It was in the news, get outside, you know, social distancing, which is good for people to do. But that certainly, we definitely know the impact of that, of folks not necessarily being prepared. Campfires, that's the third biggest reason for the highest fire number, the high fire numbers we've had this year is campfires not extinguished. And then we have our aircraft has, it's been double the rescues this year than it was last year. So it's folks that weren't prepared and did some things that if folks if they had known, or if they were prepared and trained or comfortable with those conditions, that wouldn't have happened. But yeah, that's, you know, the impact on landowners. It's while it's good people are getting out, there's an impact to that, and you guys kind of take the brunt of that sometimes as landowners. Littering, we of course we work with inland fisheries on the landowner day, picking up trash every year. You know, people going on your land without permission, and because a lot of it's they move up here and don't know the rules per se. So again, it's that education, a way to educate, and working with inland fisheries on that as well. We work very close with them. But good, you know, good points. Absolutely, I say here to you. Absolutely.
I don't think this is the end. This is just the beginning of this. But
Yeah.
there's a shift that I think that we're seeing, for better, for worse.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. We're running out of time, although if you are able to stay a few extra minutes, we'll try to get all these questions in. We have a question about there's an opportunity for LiDAR technology to bring Maine small landowners information like stand data and volumes, harvest treatments. Is this something the state is exploring? It's being used in other countries, but is it something that we're doing?
I bet I know where that question came from.
There's from
Hi,
Ted.
Ted. So yeah, I mean, that's on the table as well. Looking at that model, which is amazing, that Finland model with LiDAR and landowners getting on a website and mapping out their forests on their own, and other dimensions to it. It's great stuff. It does come down to what the big hang up of that is funding. It's a great model, but we just don't have the funding right now, or the people. And I'm hoping that can be an element to the Climate Council results, and also the 4 Maine efforts. But it's on the radar, if you will.
Terrific. Dan Jacobs, who's a district forester and one of our chapter leaders. Nice to have you here, Dan. He was asking about just the forest economy, because the market has gotten strange, I guess you could say. And if you had any thoughts about that particular topic.
So right now, obviously things are tough for especially the trucking and logging world. I'm putting a lot of stock in the 4 Maine efforts. They're looking at different avenues. The commissioner was on a call this morning with Finland, speaking with their commissioners over there. I think the forest products industry is being very reactive, you know, looking at tissue and packaging products. That's obviously a growing market. The J Mill was a big hit to us. So we're all waiting to hear if they're going to rebuild. We hope they do. and the administration is going to do everything they can to help that process along. Good to hear from you, Dan.
And then we have someone who's in the Dover Foxcroft area. She's a woodland owner herself, is a member of ours, and would like to know if there's a volunteer opportunity for woodland owners and stewards. And I can speak to that a little bit, but just curious about the Maine Forest Service and how to, besides your landowners being in the front lines of forest protection, what is your, is there any program that people can plug into or anything in particular that you would direct Nicole to?
So wait a minute, say that question again as far as,
Volunteer opportunities for woodland stewardship through the Maine Forest Service?
well, I mean, certainly, if I'm getting the question right, there's opportunities through you folks,
Mhm.
which also helps us. And with your chapters, as far as volunteer opportunities through the Maine Forest Service, there really isn't any, but I would say that each district forester in their different regions do different projects and work on with different groups, and that's the person to get with in your area and see what they're doing, and they might have particular opportunities in that area. But really, I look to Maine Woodland Owners and all the chapters that has that far reach to be an avenue for that kind of volunteer work.
Yeah, we, just so folks know, we do have 10 chapters that have representatives in each of those chapters that more or less organize events, and I go to them if there's someone who needs information locally around woodland management. I always make the connection between that person and our local chapter leader. But I'm a relatively new staff person with this organization, and this has been an area of growth for our organization, and this how to plug landowners into the work that we're doing, and feeling like there's a bigger community of woodland owners, and there's anything in particular that we want. One thing we are finding is that we are now close to 11,000 acres of land in our land trust. And just like any other woodlot, it needs eyes and ears. And so we're going to start engaging with a little bit more meaningfully with the neighbors, the butters of these properties, and maybe set up a bit of a volunteer stewardship program for our particular properties to keep an eye out, and also encourage people to enjoy them, because that's what they're there for as well. And then always just trying to get the word out about good forest practice, good forest management practice. So, and however that works best for most people in the areas. A lot of it's just getting out in the woods and hearing from owners and hearing what they're doing and learning from each other. That seems to be the most important thing for a lot of our members as well. So on that note, we are a couple minutes after 1. And I think all the questions have been sent along and been asked. However, if anybody does have more questions, is your recommendation, Patty, to reach out to your district forester if you have any other questions about the Forest Service in particular?
District forester, you can email me, and like I said, I mean it. We're a team here at the Forest Service, but I also want to be a team with you folks too. So what are your ideas? I know there's a lot of creativity out there. What are your ideas for all these topics we talked about?
So you would be open to having some emails sent along with questions and ideas?
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And also me as well. So it's just easier to email me at jen@mainwoodlandowners.org. I'm happy to pass along any questions to Patty as well. But Patty, your email is, I'm trying to remember, actually, I don't have that right in front of me. You want to go ahead and give us your email?
So it's Patty with a Y .Cormier @ Maine spelled out with an E .gov.
Terrific. And actually, I encourage everybody to look at the Maine Forest Service website.
Yep.
A lot of good resources there. We actually have linked a few of your pages on our website as part of our resources. Lots of stuff. I'll plug Dan Jacobs. He has been working with other folks from the Forest Service to put together Woods in Your Backyard manual. It's updated.
Oh, yeah. Can I just plug that?
Sure.
Right. I meant to. So there's this new manual. Dan Jacobs is still on. He basically wrote this. It's a rewrite of an earlier edition. It's a great book. It's a bound book that's the same size as our Tree ID book that came out a while ago, but great book for those out working on your woodlot. Talk to your district forester.
Yep, they're kind of they are wonderful people.
Yep.
I've enjoyed getting to know a lot of the district foresters in all the different parts of the state. And I know you have a new one in Greenville. So now you have a full complement of foresters.
Yes, we're very happy. It's been a while. We have a new district forester in Alyssa Gregory in Jefferson. That was my old district. And then a new forester, Jim Ferrante in Greenville. So we are fully stocked with foresters right now, and I'm very happy about that.
Terrific. And we're looking forward to having in-person events in the spring to get people into the woods. We'll keep you posted, Patty, if you ever feel like you can sneak out and
Absolutely.
get one of these events, especially out there in Skowhegan.
And also, if I could interrupt, if anyone wants to invite me out, I'd love a reason to be going out in the field.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, we'll try to do that with you, Patty, because I think that's where that's your natural habitat, I think.
It is.
Well, we really appreciate your time. This was a lovely way to spend lunch hour, and thank you those who've sent. I see a couple links to information. Gary Fish for providing that extra information about invasive the ash borer issue, and we do have just a ton of resource people in our world that I think that if we can just stay connected, we will have all that we need to do what we need to do for our forests here in Maine. So again, check out our website for more events in November, and we look forward to seeing Patty in the field in 2021. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you all.
Thank you.